We are red is on.
Tim's printing the,
Okay, well, good evening and welcome to budget workshop. We're working on budget for 2019. It's 4:45 p.m. So I'll stand and say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And I apologize for the way that, because I had discussed with Jeannie, we've got to get everybody together, and I should have asked.
I should have. I learned.
Should have come out, so I really appreciate getting set straight on that, because I'm always learning. I'm always learning, I guess.
I'll let you explain it, Gabby, next time.
should we take a vote on forgiveness or no? Kathy,
Richie.
should we take a vote on forgiveness or no?
Yeah.
Might take me a while.
Try not to make that same mistake.
Consensus is.
I'll make other mistakes. So Tim was bringing up
I was just gonna ask.
numbers.
Yes.
For us.
We're down 2 weeks a minute. To get them approved.
Yeah.
Come on, I get to address it, right? Yep. We're all caught up. Just have to-
Mr. Pearson, how are you?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Wow, it's
Not
still
warm.
impressive, yeah.
I'll wait for these until we hit the budget area for those. All right. So if you'll permit me this afternoon, I'd like to lead you through the changes and then also see if the board is ready to vote on some of these, because there were some minor changes made. And it seemed as though the board was in agreement for those areas other than the changes that had to be made. You'll note on the cover that the department requested is now $23,315 over the 2018 budget. And I did make a number of changes that I'll go through. So first of all, regarding payroll, the change to the Public Works Director Technician was made, and it's budgeted for the first 3 months as it's being paid now, and then for the remaining 9 months, and that's on page 8 in the center.
Oh, thanks.
And that had a dramatic effect on the Public Works budget. The Public Works budget is now down almost $60,000 from year to year. In addition, on page 2, the administrative assistant line, that was also changed to reflect the decision of the board last week. Let's see, I'm sorry, on page 1.
Which one?
It's 413130, the 4130.6130, about the fifth one down.
Yep.
So that reflects the change in rate effective 4/1. So that, again, these are the budgeted figures. All the other taxes, retirement, everything in both departments flowed through. So those are the only 2 payroll changes. Let's see, also in the administrative budget, there are two items to draw your attention to. One is is regarding the purchase of land. And in the 2017, the two items pertaining to this in the 2017 warrant article, which you can find on page 3, third line up from the bottom, I discovered that there was actually a committed amount from a contract left over from 2017, which we can, in checking with our auditors, we can still encumber because we had a commitment for the balance of this contract. So that is still a valid encumbrance. I'll still probably have something for the board to, just formalize it tomorrow. But in any event, so that $5,000 will be added to the $10,000 requested. The $10,000 would be, the purpose of which would be for a deposit on a purchase, with a purchase and sale, following approval by town meeting.
It's in the study committee line, though.
Well, it is, it's the most appropriate place to put it, because it is related to what they were charged to do.
But we haven't even heard from the study committee to even make that decision.
So, that I believe is coming, and you'll probably have that tomorrow.
Tomorrow, at the selectmen's meeting
They're
tomorrow.
coming in tomorrow night?
A letter.
Be a
To
letter.
have a little
How are we gonna
recommendation.
question a letter?
Well, you have a representative on the Board of Selectmen on the Police Study Committee, I would think. Between that and arranging for someone else to come in, but essentially there will be some amount of money required as a deposit.
If we choose to go forward with the
That's correct.
proposal, but
Right.
we don't even have the proposal. Okay,
So this is kind of a placeholder thing, depending on,
wait,
It is.
except it's gonna have to be a bond article if we purchase land. The first public hearing for the budget committee is what, February 6th?
Right, so again, this is simply a
Time is kind of
plan.
dwindling away.
I totally agree with you.
So that number might have to be,
For the sake of argument
Yeah.
tonight, right.
yeah, that's just.
Just a
in
placeholder.
there.
It's a
That's an
placeholder.
It's
idea.
hanging.
You
All right.
can, in fact, at town meeting, if it's no longer appropriate, it can be motioned to remove that, reduce it, what have you. So it's just a placeholder, as I said, and you'll have more details tomorrow. So in any event, that, no matter what, that line will have a $5,000 budget in the 2019 budget once that encumbrance is completed and added. So I just wanted to make note of that. So, for the administrative budget, there were no other changes in the administrative budget other than what I've outlined for you. As I mentioned, the taxes and retirement flowed through based on the changes to that line, and the request stands at $669,296, as you reviewed the other night. And curious if you would like to make a motion to approve that.
You adjusted the town hall maintenance and repairs, right?
I did. I did.
440.
Yeah. So there's 15,000 for the air conditioning and 9,000 for the tree lighting. It does not allow for any other items. Maybe if the board wants to add $3,000 for general building maintenance, we could do so.
Well, there isn't anything more we have to do to the building, right?
And these would be repairs to the heating system, or if we had to call someone, something wasn't working properly, the HVAC, plumbing, electrical.
AC on the second floor.
But isn't that also? Public Works has their own line.
Right. Would you like to make that 27,000 and have a few or 26,000? And set aside 2,000 for equipment maintenance and repairs, or would you prefer to just overspend if we run into issues during the year?
I'd rather leave, personally, I'd rather leave it where it is.
Is that a consensus? Okay. So then, as such, would the board like to vote on the $669,296 for the administrative approved budget?
We just did all the committees and
None aside from the selectmen. This represents a reduction of $2,443 from the 18 budget.
$15,000 for AC kills me. This seems like a lot of money. I know the need, but $15,000.
Should
So-
we,
based on that,
should we consider making that a warrant article like we did the carpeting?
It'd be much more comfy, letting
It's a
the
one-time
taxpayers who are
thing.
paying for it weigh in.
It's a one-time thing. It's not absolutely necessary.
The difficulty you have with a warrant article is that if, as you know, the estimates that we got were wide-ranging, and if, for instance, the cost comes in at $20,000 or $25,000, once the board has selected someone to do the work and you've decided to change the scope somewhat because of the building, then you're much more limited in what you can do, as opposed to
Well,
having
but
that
when we
budget.
create the warrant article, we can consider that. You always consider for contingency, but I'd rather do that in a warrant article.
But you'd have to raise and appropriate that amount of money.
That's right. It doesn't have to be 15,000, it could be 18,000, it could be 20,000.
In
In
the
a warrant article.
in the past, I mean, the electricity alone is something to consider, the cost savings in the electricity alone, plus the units themselves. The units are not going to last forever, so you're gonna have to buy units. They're only made to last 3 to 5 years, those types of units. So just keep that in
The ones
mind.
that we have.
The ones that we have, correct. But my concern is, and I don't really know the answer to this, but it seems to me that in the past, and I don't know about last year, that we've actually allowed employees to go home because of the heat upstairs here in the building. So if that's the case,
That's correct.
then
Really?
we really need to reconsider this. And we have more employees up here now than we have in the past. So at
Because
a
it was
cost,
hot.
oh yeah, way up in the 90s, hundreds, Joe. And to work under those conditions, it's really
With
unbearable.
4 window air conditioners,
Yes.
go, and it's 100 degrees up here. Yeah.
They're not as
You live up
efficient.
here, yeah.
Those
Is it
units
really
that you
100
have,
degrees?
Joe, may I finish? Those units that are here are for residential dwellings and not for 30-foot ceilings, okay? They're for a small 12,000 BTU unit that you put in your living room. That's what they're made for.
I would keep my door shut, and I have that big fan, and I open the window, and I use the fan when I can. And it wasn't cooling it down, but the movement of the air keeps you from being overheated. When I would come down here, I wouldn't stay long. I'd go back up to my space, because it was down here, even with these fans, there's really no air movement.
These
One-
fans and air
one
conditioning.
thing we might want to consider, we're looking at $15,000. That's a lot of money for just an air conditioning system. We have in this building, I don't know how long old that boiler is that's downstairs, but it fails regularly. It doesn't maintain the heat properly in the winter. Certainly doesn't do anything in the summer. And it's terribly inefficient. we may want to go and look. If we're gonna spend $15,000 on an air conditioner, that's pretty close to the price of a multi-use HVAC. So if we were to have this as two zones, upstairs and downstairs, and put one HVAC unit, these things now are smaller than the table that you're sitting at over here. And they do heat and air conditioning, and they vent them out through a PVC pipe. They're that efficient. So the savings cost, plus the repairs, and we look at the age of our boiler, which we're going to replace, one thing I worry is we're going to end up with these $15,000 piecemeal systems, and then none of them are going to work together.
I really think that we should keep it in the budget, look at John's option, but keep it in the budget, because it has to be done. We've been thinking about this now for 6 or 7 years.
Now, my thought of that whole thing with keeping the $15,000, if we keep $15,000 in, put it in the budget, see what we can do with that. If we can't get this done for that, we could, by the end of the year, come up with a good plan for HVAC for the building, and possibly encumber the funds, the $15,000 this year, and then next year, put the difference, might be another $10,000 or something, and have the whole building a new heating system that works perfectly, very efficient, and
I
works.
agree with that. That's
So
a
if we
good
keep
plan.
the 15 in here for now, and let's keep working on this. And we may not do it this summer, we'd like to, but
Yeah, I can agree to that.
So that brings me back to the bottom line administrative recommended request of $669,296. Would someone like to make a motion?
Also move that.
Second.
Under discussion,
and we've discussion.
that doesn't address 99,475, the extra $5,000 that's going on that line. So the 669, if we add another $5,000 on that line, that would change the 669, right?
No, because this is the appropriation budget. So an encumbrance would be added on top of it.
Okay, it's on, it would to be, now it being the, what is it, 16th, 17th? How can we encumber last year's money?
Because it was a signed contract by the board in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And only part of it was used, so.
I get it. Okay.
So there's still a commitment, still a valid commitment to that contract.
It was a real obligation to pay.
It was a real obligation to pay.
Okay. Call the question?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
So there were, just as it's printed, yep. In the town clerk tax collector department, there were no changes made. The request is $129,473. It represents a $1,078 increase over the 18 budget.
So move.
Second.
It's a 4,147 increase, right?
1,078.
No,
1,078.
Page
Oh, I'm
5.
in finance.
Yeah, well,
Town clerk tax collector.
Top of the page.
Oh, it's at the top of the page, I've got it. Was that due, that's due mainly to salary increase?
That's correct.
Okay.
And also reduction in the number of elections.
and, let's see, the salary increase for the town clerk tax collector at 3.0%. Is that something that the selectmen want to go and say they agree with?
It's not necessarily agreeing with, it's just allowing the taxpayers to vote on it rather than just passing it through to them.
Okay, but what is the average we're looking at?
3%.
2.5 is what we have budgeted as an average,
Two and a
Mayor.
half, and that's what I'd be looking for, not the 3 is all, as a starting base, and what the voters decide.
And that's what I feel. I think it should be on the same level as the other employees, and
Can I say it?
state the case, because the town is actually the supervisor.
The town clerk tax collector is not an employee, and she's an elected official. The money requested is for the pay of an elected official. And I don't feel comfy weighing in that it's okay or not okay, whether this is in the budget. And I understand it's the budgets committee budget, until it's voted on, then it becomes the selectmen's budget. I won't weigh in on that one myself.
So on our line, you're not gonna vote a salary at all, Joe, or what?
I'd
Or you're gonna
rather
stay at-
see it as a separate issue altogether, or warrant article. I've always maintained that it's her.
Mhm.
So this
So
is
you
our
think we-
budget.
I'm a little confused what Joe was saying. So you're saying?
I'm not voting
keep
for
the number
it.
that's in there?
I'm not
Or
voting
keep
for
it in
that.
at, you're thinking,
If it
take the
was an
3%
even,
out, keep it at what it was last year and let them present for a raise?
that's correct.
Okay. And that's what you were saying?
No, I'd say the 2.5.
Okay, Kathleen?
This is our budget. We put any amounts we want in these columns,
Correct.
any amount. So if the selectmen don't feel comfortable with the 3% raise, or we only want 1%, or we want 4% or 6%, that's what we can put in.
It's, the
She
difference-
doesn't get, we don't vote on a merit raise for her. So whatever increase or decrease is gonna be on this line, the only other option would be to have a separate warrant article, as Joe said. So you can reduce that if you want.
So my thoughts were, is that our budget to do the services of a town clerk, tax collector, to have that person here, would be worth a 2.5% increase, that's all. But I'm also okay with letting the town clerk, tax collector state her case to the budget committee and to the town. So somehow we gotta.
Catherine explained what the duties were, the sort of kind of what the budget, the selectmen's budget was, but she did not give her personal opinion on what we should do, what she would do as a selectman.
She's holding her cards
It's a
close to
tough
home.
one. That's a tough one.
The difference is $340.77 of that 0.5%, by the way.
I right now would feel uncomfortable reducing it without having an explanation from her why she feels it needs to be 3%, since we forwarded that to the other employees. But,
We have 43% is Maryland.
So now,
2.5.
you know,
So the 0.5% represents $340, or the 3% represents $340?
No, the difference between the 2.5 and 3%.
It's $340.
Yeah, a little over.
I mean, I like to think that our residents actually look at this and will go, oh, hey. And, you know, either speak to it or they'll be okay with it.
we did that last year, nobody.
No, but there was one year that they were all over it.
That was a scene.
And that was when we asked.
It was somewhere in the vicinity of 6 or 7%.
It was.
Is
It
that
was
right?
higher, yes, it was.
It was, I believe it was 7%.
Yeah.
It was modified
It was modified slightly.
on the floor,
That's right.
Was it Butterfield?
Yes, it was, that's right, it was.
lowered.
So, do we want to make, does anybody wish to make a motion to amend that 3% amount, or amend the request line, or our line, that we approve, or suggest?
Did you say that 0.5% was worth?
$340.77. And then, of course, all the, taxes and, I'll have to refigure, or just, it'll reflow.
Motion on the table.
There's motion on the floor now.
So this is still
Second.
discussion.
Yeah,
Well, nobody seconded?
yeah, Peter did,
And Peter seconded.
Any
And that was
discussion?
for,
to
approve
approve this budget,
The departmental.
yeah, departmental budget.
and under discussion,
So you can vote on that motion and,
Or it can be amended.
or we could
Amend it.
amend that amount,
Right.
and then vote on.
We don't
the
need a
amendment.
motion to change the amount in that line. We haven't used motions to change any of the amounts in the line.
I think the motion that was made was to accept.
To accept that line.
Right.
Correct.
But then there was another motion.
There could be a motion to amend the number, that portion, doesn't change the whole motion, it just changes the number. Well, I'm gonna make the motion to amend Peter's motion to
Pat's motion.
Pat's motion, second by Peter,
Mhm.
by 300,
40.
reducing it,
$340.77.
which would signify a 2.5%. So I have that second. I
Okay,
mean,
so
I
we have to
that
vote on the
motion.
amendment before we vote
We
on the
need a
motion.
second, yep,
I'll second.
and we have a second for that. Everybody understand what we're doing?
Your feeling is to put it in line with merit raises?
Yeah. If we're gonna come up with a number, I feel that the number that we're gonna come up with is. Okay, so
Yeah, that way you're sort of fair, you're in the,
that's what we're doing, and then let the vote. Okay, so I'm gonna call the question on the amendment to Peter's, Pat's motion.
the P motions, P and P.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We get 3 ayes, opposed?
Aye.
I'm going to decline the vote, as I said, she wasn't afforded the same, this is why I want this.
She can.
Okay, so anyway, that's a motion, and the motion passes, because it's 3, so we're gonna amend, now we're gonna vote on
Let the
the
record
motion.
show that I voted no.
And we're going to vote on the motion, which now reads,
How can you vote on the motion to now read?
Wait,
Peter?
wait, let's
Yeah, I
Change.
vote on the amendment.
The first,
we voted on that, we
No, I get
passed
that.
the amendment,
no, you.
No, it now is, now is amended to have $129,473 minus $340.77. That's what you just voted on.
So what is that amount?
100 and what?
129,000.
This is about line 130, and I guess ultimately it does go down to the bottom.
So just from down at this end,
Go
what
ahead.
we heard, which doesn't mean it's necessarily right, but what I heard was you're voting on the first motion that Pat made, seconded by Peter, and I heard you three
No.
vote yes to that.
No.
No, he amended her motion.
I heard that.
Okay, so.
And they voted on the
We
amendment,
voted on the amendment.
Oh, okay.
and the amendment
That's my
passed.
understanding of
Okay, all right,
parliamentary
right.
procedure.
So the amendment passed
I just
to
didn't hear that.
decrease the amount of the salary wage by $340.77.
Okay, so we can get it right for the record here.
So the bottom line figure is $129,473 minus $340.77.
So we can get it right for the record here.
No, it's gonna be 129, 133.
129,133.
So we can get it right for the record down here. The first thing you voted on was the amendment to
Yes.
reduce, and what was the vote on that?
Three
Three, one.
yeses,
Catherine,
I decline.
one no, and one decline.
So say that again, sorry.
3 yeses,
And the yeses were?
Peter, Joe, and John.
The old white
All
guys.
right.
Pat said no, and Catherine declined.
Gotcha.
I decline the vote.
Okay,
So the amendment passed.
okay, all right.
But then you wanted to go back to.
We can't go back to the original.
All right, we got it.
Okay.
Okay, now,
Okay,
No, no,
now,
no, we
we
have to
are
vote
going
on
to
the
vote
original.
on the motion
we did a motion.
that Pat brought up, that was amended, as we just stated. Everybody's clear on that? All those in favor, say aye.
So,
Oh, I'm not clear on it. What are we voting on?
We are voting on your motion.
For 129,473?
No, I know what you're voting on. You're
Okay,
voting on your motion that was amended, okay?
give me the
To
amount.
read
129, 133.
129, 133 from the, and that was a change of the
so
3,
you're voting on the departmental budget as it's been amended?
yes.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Decline to vote.
Okay, so 3-2.
So, 3, same.
So 3
Oh.
ayes.
All right, so just so you're aware, what I will do is I'll make these changes after your meeting, and tomorrow I'll have a final copy for you. For an amount of $340, if you like, I can reflow the retirement and taxes on that. It's going to be really minimal, maybe no more than $20, but would you like that done through? Okay, so you'll need to revote then on the administrative budget. That's where the
Tomorrow night.
taxes and retirement are. Okay.
It'll be easy.
So in finance, there was one change to finance, which was in the budget committee membership that was reduced. And as was suggested, I did make sure that we had sufficient hours for the budget secretary for the year, I believe. There were no other changes, and there's a budget before you, including long-term debt, which is our obligation for the refinanced USDA Lochmere sewer debt. The total finance and debt portion is $323,808.
so moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the finance budget. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
All right, I'm going to skip the IT budget for now because I have a lot of documentation to give you
Okay,
that you requested, and I'd like to move on to the land use budget. There were a few items here. I just realized
do we skip over that?
skip over land use.
Well, because we have to decide on the email that there's and that's gonna
I
take
had
some
sent the
time.
email.
Right. Do you have copies?
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you?
I don't care one way or another, but it's just,
Okay, so there.
we've done public works and,
There were a couple of items in the land use budget that I wanted to bring to your attention.
Okay.
First of all, you asked for a clarification on the request on hours for the technician, land use technician, and the planner has provided that to you. He sent it, it was sent earlier today, and that's the copy you have. So that's number one. The second thing is that the board reduced the professional consulting from $2,500 to $1. So that was reflected. And then also there was an item for to add economic development of $6,000, which is the Plan New Hampshire charrette, which town administrator can speak to you about, but that was a request that she had, I believe, discussed with the board prior.
If anyone has any questions, or if you'd like me to explain it, okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
So those items represent $138,072 bottom line budget for land use, represents a $4,734 increase, or 8.4%.
I have 3 things I'd like to address in this budget. Why all of a sudden are we paying alternates stipends?
Because the boards, some of the boards have paid these alternate stipends. When the request has been made to the chairman, they've come through with alternates
And the Board of Selectmen agreed to pay alternates stipends?
because they performed, they were sitting in place of,
We're not paying all the alternates and all the board stipends. Why are we only doing it for these 3? And there aren't any alternates that sit in the audience on the planning board. I don't believe I see alternates.
Well, it would have to be based on the amount of meetings they go to.
Well, I think that this is, I don't believe this has come to the Board of Selectmen before. This is the first I'm seeing it.
It did last year, and I think the year before, and at that time, what it was determined that there would be a stipend amount. If a member of one of the committees did not show up a certain number, you had a certain number of
You're
meetings.
talking about
and you-
alternates.
Right.
Even the
I'm
alternates,
trying
they-
to explain,
they-
please. So a lot of times people weren't showing up and not doing that. So what they determined was that the alternates that filled in at those meetings, if they filled in for X number of meetings, then they would get paid a stipend that's calculated based on the number of
Prorated.
meetings they prorated. So, thanks.
We,
And the regular members, if they missed more than, let's say, if you have a $400 stipend, they missed more than 25% of the meetings, then they would get 75% of their stipend, all the way down to
But
zero.
we should not be paying alternate stipends.
So in, the practice has been that the request goes to the chairs of the committees, and they in turn submit, their, who is to be paid. And whether they discuss, I imagine, I've seen some of them do it, and, they meet as a board, and they discuss, who's to be paid. There were several that I was surprised at in the past, and concerned because we didn't have enough money budgeted for it, but
Well, I'm
It wasn't-
embarrassed I've missed it in the past.
it wasn't an issue prior to that. But again, keep in mind, it's simply a plan. I don't want to find that we're short somewhere.
We should not be paying alternate stipends,
Why?
because alternates don't do all the studying and all the work the regular members do.
It certainly should be.
They should be, but they don't,
How do you know?
because I've seen them mention, I don't wanna be, I don't wanna be,
Sometimes the alternates actually do more because the regular members don't show up, and the alternates end up being the
In what
ones that
way?
Have to
tend
wing it.
to have.
then those members should be dismissed.
How many alternates do we have on the planning board?
I don't think we have any. We have an ex officio alternate, but I don't believe, I've never seen alternates sitting in the audience.
Hold on a minute.
But that's not the point, alternates should not be paid for hanging out or maybe, we've had meetings that couldn't take place because not enough showed up. So there were no alternates to take their place, but we're budgeting for something that doesn't exist.
We don't have alternates to take their place, but we're suggesting that right out of the gate, we treat anybody who would volunteer for that role differently than a regular board member.
Then if we're going to pay alternates, we need to pay alternates on all the boards, the budget committee, the park commission, all the boards we pay.
If they show up to the proper amount
We
of
shouldn't
meetings.
just be paying, we have 3 boards here in this budget that we're paying alternates, but the rest of the boards that get stipends, no, we're not. I don't agree to paying alternates at all.
Well, what would you like to do with these boards that are listed here? Would you like me to just put in the amount for the regular members? And if the board decides to pay an alternate down the road, it's just overexpended, or would you prefer to have a budget in there for it?
I'd rather be overexpended.
Is that a consensus, or?
Overexpended, so.
The line might be overextended if,
You're
let's
for
say,
having it, allowing it to be over.
yeah, we just move money from one line to another. It's a bottom line budget.
So then regular or elected members, appointed or elected members, if they hold a seat, a numbered seat, they would be paid the stipend, and that's it. Okay, I can
I don't,
Most
redo that for
communities don't
tomorrow.
even pay stipends.
No, I'm aware, yeah.
Let's look at it this way, okay, if we have, like, okay, Conservation Commission, 5 members, just 2 alternates.
And that was one that did pay alternates.
And if a regular member isn't able to show up, whether they're sick or something like that, their pay gets decreased by the number of meetings that they miss. And now the alternate gets paid by that. So, having said that, if you look at the math, the number actually would come out to the same as a regular number of members.
That's not our
Right.
formula.
That's,
If you miss so many meetings, you're dismissed from your position.
that's not the formula we've been using. And
Well, maybe that's a formula, but I've never seen it happen.
I believe there's an,
That's the way we have.
There's
we don't
actually-
have any alternates on the planning board. We do have 2 alternates on the Conservation Commission. We have no alternates in the Budget Committee.
The alternates haven't been getting paid their full amount.
And you only need a quorum to conduct a meeting. So even if one member of your conservation commission doesn't show up, you have a quorum. You don't need the alternate. The alternate is only necessary to make a quorum.
We have no alternates in
Hence,
park.
we shouldn't be paying alternates.
We do have 2 alternates in zoning.
So if you like, I can
So
reflow
zoning
that.
and conservation are the only 2, so in Cindy's report.
But yet the zoning
Think we
board
have
had a meeting
alternates.
last month that they only had what, 3 members? I believe that was for the dog kennel, because they asked the applicant if you wanted to hear it tonight or wait until they had a full board. So where was the alternate?
And they don't
They had
get,
four.
They don't get paid.
and they don't get paid
They
either.
had 4
That's-
that night,
That's,
Catherine.
and that's something we're gonna have to figure out, because that's not the formula that's been used.
It's
It's.
a formula
Well,
that the
this has to be
conservation-
corrected because Joe
Conservation
Jessup
Commission
is
is
one
not
of the alternates and he
independent- not
can't be a
independent
business
of the
selectman.
board of
Yeah.
selectmen.
That's what Cindy
But that
does.
formula was
Right.
approved and used for license.
Okay,
So anyway,
all right.
My concern is you've got planning board who meets 2 to 3 times a month, most of the others are once a month, yet the stipends are all the same.
Well, we have that with the stipends anyway, because budget committee, budget committee
Well,
versus zoning.
they may be more with planning issues, which I don't mind that, but if you've got ones that just are once a month, should they get the same stipend as those that are meeting twice a month?
That's been for years and years and years, and I agree with you on that. I totally agree with you on that, because you have budget and
okay, so
planning.
So is it a
lot more.
consensus then to remove, just show the $400 stipend for the seat numbered members at this
Yes.
point?
Do you want to?
well,
Yes.
are we voting on policy or a number? I think we're voting on a number.
Right now, numbers,
So we need a
policy's gonna have to be
motion.
written.
And then, right, and then adopt the policy to fit it. So let's vote on that number
Oh,
and approve that budget, and then we're gonna have to determine the policy, maybe, have this amended later on, but tending not to stall on it, based on the policy.
So the planning board is 7 members.
Are you basing it on numbers or currently active members, Catherine? Because the way it was worded, I thought it was sounding just active.
We're working on a budget tonight. It's very clear that we should either put in stipends or no stipends. So you either put in the stipends or not in the stipends. If we're gonna change policy, you have to make a decision, do you want a placeholder in there temporarily to figure out whether you're gonna change the policy or not? You have
What
time?
policy? Where's it written?
Okay, well, we need to work on that.
So
What's
planning
the
board
number
is
that
7
we're talking about?
members.
$1,600?
Zoning board is
It cut
5.
off just like that.
Commissioners is 7.
It's like, do I count, I am an elected official, just like everybody else is an elected official here.
Yeah.
I do have a say in what happens in the town too. There. Now I have your attention, thank you. It is my feeling that we are on a budget. Let's move on. If we can't make a decision, we have 2 hours to get this done. If we can't make a decision, let's drop this subject and go on to a different one, and we'll pick it up when we can make that decision. We just can't spend hours on whether or not people
That's
should
what I just said.
get planning board
That's what you said.
stipends.
We're not changing the
The
policy, we're
discussion was
voting on a number.
whether or not
So I
to
would
pay
like,
alternate stipends.
What?
no, the question is, do we want to pay that budget line amount? Are we approving that amount, yes or no?
So what I brought up was
Or
not to pay
amendment.
alternates, was to put the stipends in for the seated members.
We have
Do
paid
you have a
alternates in
different
the past,
number?
though, Catherine. We have done
Excuse
that.
me.
Well, like I said, I'm embarrassed that I didn't notice it, but just to move on, I mean,
Right.
reduce it, leave out the alternates and leave in the members.
If we have a number that we'd like to change that by,
Make a motion that we remove the alternate stipend amount from line 016941210130 salary planning board stipends. Until such time as we make a decision whether alternates should get paid or not.
What about the other two?
we'll get to those when we get to them.
This is
So
only
that
about
will
that
change
line.
it to 6.
Okay,
Need a second.
let's vote on that one.
6. So we have a motion.
So the line we changed by
We have a
1,200
motion.
bucks.
I
Second.
don't know if they're doing this by motion.
That's the way John wants it done.
We need to go over the number and have it approved and agreed on by it.
There's a motion on the table.
In the motion.
I'll amend my motion to include zoning board and conservation, any alternate stipends included in the land use budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to
But
Okay,
make sure that motion
remove
says
the-
until such time we figure out. Because this will come back to us.
do you know what the motion is?
Yeah, she's got it, right?
Remove the alternate stipend amount from the line, blah, 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 stipends, until such time whether alternates be paid. Peter seconded it, Pat amended it to include zoning and Concom, any alternate stipends.
Okay, everybody, ready to vote on that? Okay, all those,
Peter seconded.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved.
Okay, so I will make those changes of taking out $1,200 for the planning board, $800 for zoning, and $800 for conservation. So,
800 for zoning,
yes.
and 800 for Concom,
Right, so there's, there
And then
are,
2,800.
planning.
and 1,200 from planning. Yep.
so it's 2,800.
Yep. So that would give,
Why are you taking 1,200 from planning? There's 7 planning board members.
we show
Ex
6
officio.
This
Show
is
six.
ex officio.
Oh,
non-ex.
that's right.
Yeah.
One's an
And one of
ex-officio.
those
Thank
is
you.
a person from Lockmere Village who
And
indeed exists.
the zoning board shows 5 seated members, and the conservation commission shows 7 seated members with 1 vacancy right now, and 2 alternates. So the conservation commission will be 7 seats.
So it was 1,200 for planning, 800 for,
Zoning,
Zoning and
and a
800
reduction
for
of
Concom.
800 for Concom.
and 800 for Concom, so
Is
just
there-
3.
Was there another one? I thought there were 4.
Zoning,
Not
planning,
not in this budget.
Okay.
So that would be, so that would be a revised number of 135,272, $135,272.
So that's the number we're voting on, right?
Well, there's still more in this budget. This is one we're gonna skip, right? Before we vote on the, vote on the bottom line.
The land use, okay.
we are,
I thought the motion was to approve it.
The,
We
Technicians, right.
decided to discuss this portion of it.
were there other things that you were gonna bring out?
Not
Other
other
than
than
the-
what I've already mentioned in the economic development.
Other than the technician, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So everybody else is happy with everything else in the land use budget. They don't want to discuss it any further, except for we're going to address this letter tomorrow night, or tonight.
At this time, we can come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so let's move on. Health and welfare. This budget had no changes to it since your last meeting. And we did review it earlier, one of the first budget meetings that we had. You haven't reviewed it recently, but the net is a reduction of $5,000 in general assistance. And so the total welfare budget, health and welfare budget is $90,080. That's the request. And it is a reduction of 4.8% over the 2018 budget.
So moved.
I'll second that. Discussion? All All those in favor of the motion to accept the $90,080 budget? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Okay, in Public Works, you may recall there was a combined budget of $126,098 of salary for both the Public Works Director and the mechanic technician. Given the agreement with the Public Works Director technician and the renaming of that line, his salary for 2019 will be, the first 3 months will be at his $27.21 an hour rate. That'll be the 40 hours that you'll see in that line, and then from April on, it represents the, based on, the implementation by the board and the review, represents a salary of $87,500. So the combination of those two on an annualized basis is $79,775. In addition, there was also savings in healthcare. And other than that, those were the two major changes. And as such, the Public Works budget had a reduction of $59,000, almost $60,000. And when you add that to the sanitation budget, it's a total request of $1,190,796, or a reduction of $48,896, which represents 3.9% reduction.
Highway salaries, overtime went down $14,000, yet it shows a 45.2% increase.
So
Am I wrong, yeah?
No, because the 2018 budget was $31,000, and the selectmen's base budget was $40,000.
Oh, I was looking at the wrong column.
Okay.
Good to go.
I move that we vote the budget $1,190,796. Public Works and Sanitation.
Second.
You have them on both at the same time?
Motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions are not voting, so that's unanimous.
Okay, so we have a choice here. The police discussion is going to, there are two items to discuss in the police department regarding salaries, one of which is the inclusion or not of the 8th officer, which I provided you with a separate, oh, I'm sorry.
John?
I have a question. No problem.
But
Wouldn't it be more prudent for us to put the 8th officer down as a warrant article and let the voting body decide if they want to increase the police cost that much, and instead of us? We have one of the highest per capita costs in the state, let them know ahead of time and let the voting body decide instead of 5.
That would be an interesting precedent. I don't think we need an 8th officer. There was only one time that we had 8 patrol officers, and it was only a short time, 1 year, that I can find. Looking back, it was only a short window in 1 year where there were 8 officers. But we range between 6 and 7 patrol. That doesn't include the supervisors, which are supposed to patrol as well. I think I'm not voting for an 8th officer, I can tell you. There's no way.
Do you all have the sheet that I did on the cost of the 8th officer?
Yep.
83,443, and that includes everything?
Right, because as it turned out, the most likely health plan for the person identified turned out to be a family plan.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. So I gotta keep going back to that.
See, I'm not sure exactly, I can't remember what I can bring up for discussion based on some things are public and non-public. I agree with Catherine that we did make an agreement that if we did do the dispatch, we would not add an 8th officer, and that's what we presented at town meeting last year, and that's how that whole thing went through to allow for that. However, I'm also looking at the future in the next 2 years with based on the number of years that some of our employees have in at the police department and their possibilities of retirement, and that maybe we need to prepare for it. So, and have somebody at bat. Because we're going to have to end up, if somebody retires, we're going to have to replace somebody. So I'm not saying either way, I'm stuck in the middle of this.
But usually when we have people retire from any position in town, it's at that point that we replace them. We don't usually have them stacked up and waiting.
And that's true, but the thing I was thinking about is having somebody ready so that we don't have somebody going through academy and possibly failing and advertising and all that for it, where they said they have somebody now. I'm not for this because we said no, but I'm not against it, and that's where I'm on the fence about the warrant article. Pat.
Well, just a point of fact, when the chief did, not defending it or one way or another, but the fact is, when he did say that on dispatch, we did have 8 officers on board, on the payroll, when that promise was made. And it was after dispatch, after we voted dispatch, that Nadine left. Nadine was the 8th person on the payroll. After that, Nadine left, it brought it down to 7. That's the fact. So, the other fact that I want to bring out is that, now that Catherine's biting at the chomp here to say something, I just lost my train of thought, so go ahead. We'll get back to me.
It's recorded, he sat here and said,
Mm-hmm.
he said 7 officers. 7 officers. That's what he agreed to.
When he said that, there were 8 on the payroll.
Doesn't matter, what he agreed to was 7 patrolmen, 7 officers. It's
No,
on a
he
recording
agreed-
somewhere.
He agreed
Should
not
be in
to
the
add
minutes
another
as
one.
well.
He said 7
Okay,
officers.
whatever. Need to hear it.
But it's on a recording, I mean, don't take my word for it, it's on a recording. He sat there and said that.
We would have to have that when we go to town.
I mean, when he appeared before the budget committee, and it was brought up to him, he agreed, yes, I did say that. So he himself agreed that he said it to the budget committee.
There's no question he said it.
But anyway.
He won't deny that
I
he
mean,
said it.
And whether he said it or not,
Mhm.
whether he had the agreement or not, I don't believe we need 8 officers. He said crime is up. I mean, I admit I couldn't find statistics for just Tilton, but in the state of New Hampshire, I found statistics and crime is down. So,
So stuff.
12 square
I
miles,
know.
and part of that square miles is water? Really?
So,
And part of that square miles
Joe,
is
go ahead.
exit 20. We pay a professional wage to a professional guy to advise us on what the needs are for policing the town of Tilton, who said 8 officers. And I'm not a police expert myself. I have to go with the professional recommendation. And I also understand that there have been regular revolving door at the police department. People come and people go. I'm aware of people who potentially are going relatively soon. And I could foresee us being back down to 7 officers again real quick. And maybe having to scramble to fill that spot with somebody who doesn't know Tilton. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm a law and order kind of guy. And I will vote to keep the people of Tilton as safe as I know how.
Yeah, or Pat, just come up with
just thought about what I was going to say, and that is that we do, it's gonna, if somebody left right now, it'll bring us down to 6. But we talk about people leaving and stacking up, and in every single police department, we always, every police department always looks ahead and have people on the lookout for people, and they keep it on a list and testing and so on and so forth, and keep that list for 2 years and ongoing. Every police department does that. We all are always looking for officers in case you have that turnover and unexpectedly somebody leaves. That is always so that you're not looking for somebody last minute. You have a list. I mean, any good corporation does that as well. We're always looking. There's, in my opinion, there's room for improvement in administration and the way that we manage our police department. With that said, I have no problem putting that on a warrant article and putting it out to the people and let them vote for it. I have absolutely no problem.
What was the plan to have the additional officer start after this is approved at town meeting?
That's correct. Yeah, so the actual 2019 budget request reflects a May 1st start. If I might, just a couple of statistics. Last year, your workforce, your workforce in Tilton full-time turned over 25%. So you had 25% of your full-time employees leave and then rehired for them. So the other thing too is, as you know, in the past, I've kind of harped on one thing year after year after year after year. I think every year I've been before the Board of Selectmen, which is the need to develop a model that reflects the resources that are required for our community. So once you have a model, then you know when there's a vacancy, or you know when you're going to have a vacancy, you can better plan for that. And I know that the chief has mentioned in public some of the structural changes that he's looking to make in the next year or two as there are retirements. And I think it is still as valid today. I need to really look at what those requirements are and have some kind of model that makes it much easier for the Board of Selectmen and I think also for the police department, because then it's a known quantity. You know, the services that are required, the resources to provide those services are identified. And something like that, if you were going to put this in a warrant article for the 8th officer, maybe somewhere else in the budget there should be some money to hire that expert, as you mentioned, Joe, to, you know, someone that could come in and really evaluate maybe some different options or a service model for the town. So it's just something to consider, because I know each and every time the board grapples with, you know, are we going to hire, are we going to replace, are we going to promote, you know, and if the chief always has a good strategy and, you know, a well thought out strategy as to what he wants to do and how he wants to do it, but you're kind of left without any kind of, you know, independent look at what's another way of doing this. So it's just something I bring forward, and, you know, that's my little soapbox for the year.
We didn't have a motion. And the thing would be, in order, would be to put a motion in for the police department budget, if somebody wants to.
Do we still have to discuss the
So there's one other item.
That's a non-public.
That's a non-public.
Yeah, so
Why don't we wait till the non-public and then
yeah,
figure
I think
that out?
what we skip over this, so we've got a little stuff to digest. And I think we're all aware of what the other
Yeah.
part of it is, so we can keep that sort of in the back of our mind.
So in culture and recreation, the Green Committee still exists on here. There hasn't been any activity to my knowledge,
None
but
whatsoever.
um,
I've been trying to get
we have a
people-
dollar.
Well, I've been trying to get people to volunteer to move forward. I've had some interest expressed and no volunteers. That
I'd
doesn't
like to keep the
mean
dollar in there.
that doesn't mean that it's never gonna go anywhere.
So the Parks Commission budget has increased 6.1%, and they've also moved their fireworks to be paid for by donations, so essentially paying for it out of the revolving fund for the next year. Pardon me. And you can see all of the items listed there. The largest portion of their budget is the landscaping, the cost of landscaping at just under $20,000. And
That's in contract?
those are in contracts, that's
Okay.
correct, with two different companies.
Does this include what highway does? It does not.
No, in other words, we mow 132 ball field. The money that's in here for the ball field is for the fertilizing and,
So I read in Kevin's report that he's made multiple attempts to keep the ice rink cleared. Is that on the town of Tilton monies to do that?
that's correct. To my knowledge, I'm not aware of what costs that have been incurred. Nothing's been given to me. I mean, we can always adjust something. It can go to the Parks Commission, for something like that, but.
Can I move it from my left pocket to my right pocket? It's still
Right.
right pocket
Kind
money.
of, yeah, it's a bottom line budget,
Yeah.
as you're so.
You're absolutely correct on that. However, it would be nice to know how much is Parks and Recreation and how much is highway. That's what I'm getting at.
Well,
I'm not concerned with highway doing it. I'm just concerned with, we really should know how much is Parks, how much in Recreation, how much is highway, that's what I'm concerned with.
well, from a
Highway,
city,
the public works director could track the
He-
time for plot for,
he'll be able to do that.
Ice,
Mowing.
time for mowing.
all those.
So in addition to that, we do the ball field, and we do the ice rink, and we do a couple of other things that are sort of kind of that riverfront park that are in addition to that in Parks Commission expenses that are not included in this budget that you have.
That's correct. This is the budget from the Parks Commission.
I think the taxpayers really need to know that it costs a lot of money for Parks and Recreation. And they look at it and they say, oh, $41,000. It's really deceiving because it's actually probably in the 60s or $70,000 because highway does some of this and, to help out. And
We
it's,
charge $50 a time to pull the trash bags out. I don't see how you can get 20 grand,
Yeah, it doesn't have much more.
maybe 2 grand.
And then it's plowing the lots and clearing the ice and mowing.
It's
and-
labor.
Well, plowing the lots.
They don't plow riverfront.
No, they plow the ball field, that's the one I'm thinking.
and then go up to the, All right,
What is the summer and play for $5,000?
that was an example. I don't know if that's an accurate
So
figure.
Parks,
That's,
that's
Alright.
Paul Rushlow. He does 3
Oh, and then-
hours a
3 hours.
day, Monday, Wednesday,
3 days a
Friday.
week.
He does, checks the facilities, cleans up stuff, basically some of our eyes. He alerts, well, when there's problems, he'll alert us.
And
Picks up litter.
does that include his work as an arborist /
No.
fertilizer guy? Or
No, that's contract work.
That's a different line?
right,
Yeah.
Is it still under Parks?
Parks
That's
pays
in,
it.
some of that,
Okay.
yes.
So it
Some
does
of that's
include
in the
under the
landscaping.
41,
And the summer and play is paid per hour.
still
Time
included under
sheet.
41,000,
Time
right?
sheet.
He turns in his
So
time
it's
sheet.
listed.
Yep.
Okay,
So it could be less.
so I'll motion $185,846 for Parks and Recreation.
Is there a motion?
Second.
That's different.
46, did you hear that, Catherine?
What's that?
The motion? The motion?
The potion?
The potion?
Yep.
Keep from Pat, so it's potion. One for,
185,000.
846. And it was seconded by Peter. Just want to make sure you heard that. Any further discussion?
I have one more question under discussion. Where are we putting the lights, the extra lights when we buy them at the end of the year? where do we put that? Do we put that under parks? Or where do we put that?
Parks hasn't bought lights.
Depends on who is buying, I would
Well,
imagine.
we put them
Well-
down, remember we bought lights
Parks
last
did buy
year?
Right, they did
some
that to the island.
Yeah, well, where do we put that, what line item do we put it under?
The island would be selectmen's.
Yeah, the island selectmen.
It's not
River
under
front
parks.
is parks,
But it should be under culture and recreation, or no?
not the island, because that's not under parks
It's under public
jurisdiction.
works, it must
We
be.
put some of the, we use some of them
I'll
under,
have to look it up.
In the
down,
past, you guys have afforded me several $100 several times at the end of the year, although we didn't this year, to buy lighting for the island or
didn't we use
Christmas
some
tree.
for
But
downtown or?
Parks Commission
Never in the
did
trees
buy
down
some
here,
as well
no.
through J.P. Carter,
It's,
bought lights as well.
other question, under discussion was, I would like to go and see the parks come before us, or at least before the budget committee, so they can explain it better. But I'm all for that motion, because if we go to the lights, we're gonna look at, what, $25 out of $185,000, so. I would like more information, but I'm ready to vote. Any other? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Hey,
Did you want to discuss?
So move for
I'm sorry.
one.
At the record show.
Did you want to review the outside agencies?
Yep, we can go down, and if we have any dissension in any of them, then we'll just move on until we figure it out.
I believe they're all identified here.
Well, there's a couple, like, so I'll move Park Cemetery, Animal Control, and...
Do we really need to approve these line by line? Can't we approve the bottom?
Well, those are contracts, so.
No, just.
No, you don't wanna,
No.
you go,
I wanna go, yeah, we can discuss it, but are we gonna make a motion for each one of these lines?
well, we'll do the,
You,
Yeah.
By the time you're done, you may want to.
yeah.
Oh, God.
So Peggy,
I wanna go Animal Control in, Park Cemetery. Make a motion, we approve the,
Second.
request amount.
those two, that's pretty.
Yep,
Second?
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Yeah,
aye.
Opposed, unanimous,
Done.
so that's a good grouping.
I can tell you, Lakes Region Planning is a set dues
Oh, yeah,
amount.
that's right, I should have included that.
Lakes Region Planning, I'll make a motion that we approve that.
second.
We have a second, discussion,
Yes,
go ahead.
no, aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous,
Make a motion for youth assistance program, $48,258.
Second.
a motion and a second for youth assistance program. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Lakes Region Mental Health used to be Genesis. I'm going to make a motion that we approve that for $3,000. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous?
Motion, Child and Family Services for $3,000.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Motion,
Unanimous.
motion for a community action program for $26,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the community action program for $26,000. Any discussion?
Definitely.
All-
yeah.
Do we think that we
This
want
is
more?
gonna be a meeting.
Let me just finish this up. What I'm saying, do we think that we want more information on this?
Mhm.
I don't.
Or is that what the discussion, they need more information, they just want to express an opinion? Okay.
I was at the meeting when they had the budget committee. And I don't think we should be paying community action programs $26,000. I think they should go out to their other communities and get money from them and not get it all from us. Franklin has is their largest provider of services, and I think they pay what, 6,000?
6,000. The highest they ever paid was 22,000.
And then they cut it. So proportionally, we shouldn't be paying 26,000. It's easy for them to put that all on us instead of going to all those meetings they'd have to get it from the other communities, but I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers.
What do we get from community action?
I'd reduce it by half.
What do we
If
get
we,
from community action?
Community Action does a lot of the subsidized programs, your fuel assistance, your electricity, your Meals on Wheels, they do the program director for the senior center. They keep the programs going at the senior center. They do the meals at the senior center. They do a lot of your resources for seniors in town. They do the food program for the government program for food with program, things like that. It's done out of the Franklin office, which was Gail. My fear in all of this is that if you cut this program, and one of the first places that they're going to cut is the meals, and where they're going to cut is going to be the seniors and the meals and the programs that are going to be cut first to the seniors at the senior center. And I just am not going to vote for this at all. I mean, there's a huge, huge population that this will be affected. You know, we can't judge what other towns are giving or how they're getting serviced by what we give. And I get there's a lot of unfunded mandates that come down day after day after day from the state. We have gotten serviced from the Franklin office. We can make a phone call and say this senior is without, or this one doesn't have a meal, or this one doesn't have clothing, or things like that. And they have been extremely helpful to us. Fuel assistance, they've sat down hour after hour after hour to figure it out with their medical bills and their bills, and try to figure out a way to get them a fuel assistance and make the numbers work. So I just am not going to, this is an extremely valuable asset to the town of Tilton.
Helps you with your question, Bill? Do you have any other questions?
Well, no, I kind of just agree with Pat,
Peter,
by
do
and
you have
large.
Yeah, I don't see why Tilton shares the lion's burden of subsidy. If you've got a town that's 2.5 times our size paying 6,000, why are we paying more than 4 times what they're paying? And then we've got how many towns around us that contribute nothing? They're still receiving services, my bet.
Sure they are. Do we know how the budget committee voted on this?
Yes, we do. And that's what I was going to say next was, and I agree with Pat, this is great. And Heather says that they are the most helpful, one of our programs that helps these residents of this town, saves a lot of our money off our budget. It was brought up by the budget committee why the numbers are way skewed based on the population served and the other towns, their population, what they're paying. And that question was brought to the director of the CAP program, and we have not gotten a reply yet. And those very specific questions that Peter brought up, Kevin, what he brought up, have been posed. I don't know if there's an answer back. I will find out at 7 o'clock tonight, or after 7 o'clock.
Has the budget committee voted on this appropriation?
They started to, and then they tabled it based on waiting for some more information. And I think they put like a guideline, we'll wait 3 weeks or something for
I would
that.
move to table this until such time as the budget committee's questions have been answered.
Why don't we get our own questions answered from the director? I mean, we can certainly talk with the new director. She's brand new. Pam Jolivet retired, along with the assistant director, Joan Barretto. So we can get our own questions answered. We don't need to fall on the backs of the budget committee.
Well, no, but the other thing, if there are questions that the budget committee already has, I think after
Thank
tonight,
you.
we'll forward that
I
right
agree,
over
I totally
to
agree with
them,
that.
and then we'll add additional questions to it. I'll try and have all that for tomorrow night. And then we'll submit it this week, and then it looks like this number might be off for like another week. I think another week will sufficient time to get our answers. Does that sound good, everybody?
Works for me.
The question was you had one to table.
Yeah,
So-
I'm on the table this line, but it's unnecessary if we're just gonna do it by
Just skip over it
consensus.
for now.
So,
We have a
If we're trying to
motion right
complete
now
a
that
Motion
budget
to
by
table.
tomorrow night,
so,
it's not
just,
complete.
I received a call today from Jane Olden. We had on our calendar that we were going to present the selectmen's budget at their meeting on the 23rd, and she's asked to move that out to January 30th.
That gives us a little
So
bit.
we have a little more time to get this straightened out.
January
Like-
30th, do we have time? I mean,
Yeah,
we have February 1st, we have to have,
That means it has to be done.
yeah, we'll have to do our warrant articles.
the same time.
Only, only if there's a bond or appropriation.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're
the
not
mo-
presenting the 23rd, we're
Okay, so the
presenting...
motion for the table is on the table for
Yes,
discussion, and we'll put
So,
a date we're going to table that until.
actually, so if that is motion, Gail's correct, we do need to withdraw the prior motion that was on the table. Just withdraw it.
Who made it?
What?
I'll
Want to
withdraw my
vote on
second.
your motion, or do you want to
I'll withdraw my second.
put the, add on the motion, that you withdrew your second, your
So there's no
motion to
motion.
approve it? Does anybody else want to second it? So there's no motion.
second one, tabling?
No, approving. Pat, motion
Pat had
to
a motion
approve.
to
I
approve that
seconded
amount,
it.
the second
But
withdrew,
you-
that
you want-
motion,
I'll fight
fails.
for it at town meeting.
and we have a motion now to second, to
To
table that until next,
Till it comes up again, and it will.
okay?
I'll have every senior in the town of Tilton.
All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Say aye.
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 Not sure.
Opposed?
Table.
So moved. So we've got a 5 table, it, so
Comes up again.
comes up again, which will be tomorrow. Franklin V&A,
Second,
12,572.
I still second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Unanimous for Franklin V&A.
New beginnings?
Make a motion, we can give him 1575.
Motion to give New Beginnings 1575. Second, anybody? Somebody want to second New Beginnings? I'm going to second that. It's one of those things that,
Thought you guys liked New Beginnings.
all those, what, further discussion? Yeah. I mean, I seconded it, so you get somebody.
I've always voted against New Beginnings. I know they do wonderful work in any number of different cases, and they're a necessary, what I would term evil. But I worried then and I worry now about their accountability. Whoever hits the door first has the full weight of New Beginnings behind them. And I've seen it used as a club. And you can't find a lawyer to defend yourself because they're all tied up with New Beginnings. Which, of course, is a wonderful organization, except for when it's beating somebody down, they can at least afford to be beat down. I've seen no indication that they changed their accountability, do any kind of background or it becomes he said, she said, and whoever gets there first is the one they believe. That's my 2 cents, for what it's worth.
Any other discussion on New Beginnings? Yeah?
Can I just remind the Board of Selectmen that we're here to do a budget. We're really not encouraged to put our personal biases into this budget process. I mean, we can,
Why is it a personal bias? Just because I know of examples.
we've had years of these programs being our backbone of existence in the town of Tilton. New Beginnings are the backbone of the police department that call up and say, hey, can you help? And they're right there to help the police department. And now, for $1,500, we're not gonna fund them to say, hey, can you help? But, by Jesus, we're gonna go down a couple of lines and pay $67,000 to completely fund a nonprofit organization, or 50% fund an organization to play ball with the kids. So I don't get where we're going here, because we have a personal experience with something. You haven't seen the whole entire picture. You haven't talked to the police officers that in the middle of the night when, somebody's getting
You know who I'm
the
talking
crap beaten out of them, because you've already said that to me.
And I've never talked to the cops.
No,
preface
you've
this
already
whole
told me
thing-
your experience with it. That's where I'm going from.
Yeah,
You've already given me your experience on it, Joe.
I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
So,
Future Insight, they requested $2,000.
and that's still funded at zero, I'm assuming that,
It doesn't get funded if it's
That would be
voted out.
zero, yeah.
well, somebody could fund it at a different amount.
You're gonna make a motion.
I'm
I
just
think,
entertaining a motion.
Future Insight,
He's still on New
I'm just
Beginnings.
making sure we're
Oh.
past that nobody,
I thought I heard you say
we
Future
just,
Insight,
we're
I'm
moving
sorry.
on now, because somebody could have made a motion for a different amount, but we're past that,
Okay.
just want to give that out.
Thought I
Future
heard you say-
Insight,
Didn't they start out by asking us for $500?
No, they've always asked us for a larger amount, and we've given them $500 in the past.
Okay, that's what I'm remembering, the
Right.
$500.
Seems like we spent $2,000 last year.
And this is, a federally funded organization, right?
We spent we gave them $2,000 last year because they were very active with the seniors and came into their homes and actually gave them equipment and came to the senior center several times. He equipped the seniors with visual corrective ways to help with sight problems. I can't articulate all that they've done, so each individual person that they've gone into their homes is about $600 to $800 worth of different equipment. I think in Tilton they've gone into last year when we gave them $2,000, they actually went into 8 different homes in Tilton.
Last year was 8.
Yeah, so that's why. So they do come up and set up programs at the senior center, and then they come into homes in Tilton. I don't know the number that they did for Tilton actively in Tilton. So in the past, we've done $500. There are the seniors that they've helped. There are some that are no longer around.
And,
I would be very comfortable making a motion that we gave them $500.
I think,
I'd second that motion.
so we have a motion and a second for the $500. Discussion?
That's as opposed to the $2,000 request?
I think that's what the budget committee recommended too. And it was based on, they do have some endowments and a significant stream, but everybody felt the same way Pat did. They do
It
a
keeps
lot
the door
for our
open that we
citizens.
fund.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for $500 for Association Future Insight. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So move, $500 unanimous.
CASA requested 1,000.
No, to 500.
Their request is 1,000. Yeah, from 500, that's crazy.
I got 2,000 on my,
The budget.
It's the
Request
same,
1,000.
it's the same year to year.
Do you know what the
it was
budget committee
2,000 last year.
voted on?
I do not.
1,000.
No,
Was it
Future
1,000?
Insight.
Yeah.
Oh,
We cut it to 500 from 2,000.
Yes, Future
Okay.
Insight, that's correct.
Good enough. All right, now we move on, right?
So CASA was 515 to 17 was on the average, but they asked for $1,000.
The 18 was also 1,000, correct.
Did we give them 1,000 last year?
We did.
what do other communities give them? Is it proportionally the same,
I think it's about the same.
Yeah.
1,000 or 500?
It seems to me that Meredith is giving about the same, 1,000, but I'll check that. Confirm that.
How about that we give the Red Cross $500? Motion.
It's
CASA.
still a
I
CASA,
skipped the
don't-
CASA.
We're still in CASA.
I skipped CASA because nobody made a motion and we're just going back and
Okay.
forth and it's 6:15.
Is there a motion for CASA?
I'll motion
I
to.
motioned already for Red Cross.
Okay, well, we're in the middle of a discussion of CASA and all these jumps, so.
I don't think there was a
So
second.
Pat has a motion for
I
Red
was trying to move
Cross.
things along.
You're confusing us. That slows us down.
Okay.
So Pat jumped over to Red
So I
Cross.
make a motion that we do $1,000 for CASA.
And you were
How's
throwing
that?
Red Cross. $1,000 for CASA.
Nobody
Second.
seconded.
Okay, second. Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? All those,
We want 1,000 instead of the 500, which we've been paying more than the 1,000, if you look over the years.
We just upped it to 1,000. We always used to give them 500.
Right, well, so why don't we go back?
I think that they provide far more than $1,000 worth of service to the most vulnerable people in our population.
And what percent of that budget is raised through town appropriations?
Don't know. I do know what they do, and I do know who they do it for. I think, well, what I think apparently doesn't make any difference, but I would second it.
okay.
Maybe in about 45 minutes.
Call the question?
Okay.
See, here
Call
comes
the
your
question.
bias.
All those in favor of the $1,000 for CASA, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. 3, 4, 2 against. Moving on.
Make a motion, we accept, make a motion, we accept the $500 request for Red Cross.
Second?
Why don't we fund Red Cross now? What's their CEO make? What percent of their donations actually go to the needy? I'm a 0 on that one.
In my discussion would be in 2017, they didn't claim the money. And there was another year, I think 2 years before that, they didn't claim the money. They did offer 2 CPR trainings in Tilton where they charged for that. No service members in Tilton in the armed services served in 2017. They didn't have smoke detector service requests in Tilton.
Did
And
they assist fire victims?
they
Not until
they did
last
not
year.
get their money in 2018 either. They didn't pick it up.
According to this, they didn't have any
Yeah,
cover.
there wasn't an appropriation in 18.
Okay. So, and my thoughts were, you said it's a national organization, there's a lot of things coming in anyway, and it's, I think that they should probably do collections or drives, things like that, put a can out at that town meeting
Call
for
a question.
donations. Any other? Call a question? All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, what exactly are we voting for?
We are voting to fund $500 for Red Cross.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Who's that? Pat?
It's an A.
Okay.
Nobody
So that was a
voted
5.
aye, I don't think. Okay.
I'll make a motion, we not fund partnership for public health.
Second.
Call a question.
What is Partnership for Public Health proposing to provide for us?
What was the former name? They had,
I offer no opinion.
they had another name before they were partners in public health.
Yeah, it's
It's
the,
Lakes Region something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and what they do is you call them and they tell you who else to call. Okay.
Yes. Essentially, that was it.
$2,500?
You're a glorified
Yeah.
operator, Joe.
Nice if you
They
can
go-
get it.
Yeah, it was very poorly presented at the.
Joe.
you-
service
we'll
link.
call it- Service link.
Service link.
You call them, they'll tell you to call, where to
It's
go.
part of, Service Link is an umbrella under there, under them. It's a resource center that's all in one now.
Could this be something that our Human Services Director would use?
No, she already has all that information and more.
She could probably direct it.
Yeah, she could probably give them.
I see. Okay.
So anyway, did we have a motion to
Yes.
fund that?
No,
I have
not
a
to
motion
fund
not
that.
to
funded.
fund.
Okay,
That's
and
my
we had a
motion.
second?
Yes.
All those in favor of not funding,
Who seconded, please?
I did.
not funding partnership in public health? All those in favor of not funding, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, not funded.
I'll make a motion to fund Pines Community Center for $64,750.
I'll second for discussion.
What's the number?
64,750.
Level funded.
It's a 2018.
Oh, level funding, that's what you're looking at?
Keeps going
Do
up
you know
and up.
the number, why they raised it?
Wages is
Probably
one of them.
wages.
Fixed costs have gone up. Whenever you hire, or whenever you call somebody over to look at the furnace, which ultimately is going to need replaced. The back needs to work on the clapboards, and there are various things that need attention and addressing. They spent a considerable amount of money on cameras, and various security training has gone up. They're training their new people extensively to make sure that they're up to snuff when it comes to being licensed. And they've made a lot of progress, certainly. Just an observation. But that would be my understanding as to why the cost has gone up. There's been no significant, even non-significant pay raises to the best of my knowledge. I no longer sit on the board over there, so I don't go to the meetings every time, but things cost more.
Do we know if they have any sort of long-term maintenance plan? You brought up boiler, roof, and clapboards.
They do.
That's a
They
good chunk
do,
of the building.
They do, and they have it out there squirreling away money toward that end so that it doesn't come as a $20,000 or $25,000 whammo. The furnace is old and they not more maintenance on it than there used to be. That building is not A1 insulated.
That was built, what, early 90s?
It's drafty and cold in the coldest months, so the heat works, double time.
Okay, so, in my thoughts, because I attended the presentation by Brittany, along with Scott Haskins, and I'm trying to think who else attended.
Rose?
I found Rose? I don't
No.
think she did not attend. But what I saw is they have been getting a lot more money from grants, a lot more grants. The attendance is up, they have more things for teens now, and they've increased that, and their teen attendance has increased. They have made a plan for replacing the roof, we asked about that, and keeping that up. The siding is having some problems, so they've got money put aside and plans for that. So my thoughts are to fund them fully because they've been doing such an excellent job in the turnaround, and the $3,000, they needed more money, but they did get money from grants as well as some money left over from the sales of the building, the church in Northfield.
They did.
And they put that into an account for capital improvements.
I'm pretty sure it was given with that specifically in mind. They had no options, so it is where it is.
Earmarked for that.
Well, if they got grants and they're asking for additional monies, how does that work?
They've expanded their programs. Well, you shake your head, but these kids need someplace to go. I think it's a good thing.
My seniors need someplace to go too.
And they have the senior center, and I vote for that too.
Okay, so,
Well, not necessarily if you take their meals away from them.
we'll call.
I'm not that guy.
Okay, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of Catherine's motion to fund Pines Community Center at $64,750, say aye.
I,
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Make a motion, we fund the Pines Community Center for the budgeted request of $67,250.
Second.
All those in favor of funding Pines Community Center at $67,250, say aye.
Aye?
Opposed?
I,
So moved. Men versus women.
Wait,
okay,
so
just a minute.
I'm not clear.
She said I.
Well, they meant nay.
Right.
Right.
Yes, it was when he,
you said all those in favor of not funding, of
Yeah,
funding the
that's the vote.
67,000,
it was 3-2.
Say
not in favor, I said aye.
aye. I am not in favor.
That's right.
But that passes,
It
67
did
to
pass the original.
Make a motion to fund the cultural summer concert for $2,000.
Can we,
Second?
okay, and just a brief moment.
I don't need to be.
We're all set.
Yeah.
We'll keep going. We're doing pretty good.
Thanks, guys.
All right, who seconded that, please?
I did,
Motion was for
2,000.
Budget committee.
$1,000 for the summer concert. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Discuss.
Yes,
Have we ever seen financials as to what they have in account, what they expend each year, and what they, they get money from the towns, but isn't there a trust set up?
They, actually, the family does contribute, they ask for $2,000 from each town, and the family contributes the balance of those $78.
Do we ever see what those financials are?
They do submit a financial statement to the budget committee every year, they require that. In
There's
fact,
no
Joe,
trust set up for concerts.
the family.
There's no trust
So,
set up for
I know.
concerts.
Yes, They reach
They
in their
go out.
pocket and write a check.
They reach in their own pocket and write a check. They go to Franklin Savings Bank and the Rotary, and they say, can you sponsor this concert on this night, or personal people.
I wouldn't know because I haven't seen financials. You just told me the banks, Kenny Partridge and all are contributing, so there's more incoming
So,
funds. So
hang on.
I'm just trying to figure out,
Here,
are
here's-
we,
Yeah, they do have the, where is it?
so the financials are submitted to the budget committee every year. Every year, they submit one to the budget committee.
Who
So
sponsors
2
what?
years ago, they did not submit one, and they were told that they wouldn't be funded until they did submit one, and Joe worked with them to make sure they got it there in time. The money comes from $2,000 from each town, the rest are by people who will sponsor specific shows, and
Right.
whatever they can't get, the Hartwell family covers for.
Right.
I wouldn't know because I've
And
never
that's-
seen, I've never
that's
seen
what-
anything. All I see
Well,
is
it's
a
on all the
request.
flyers, every single flyer that goes
But
out, it's
That's
sponsored
not a
by.
financials
Hang on,
They don't
hold,
have,
please. I
You're
can
not
answer
gonna-
Peter's question. Right, Peter has a question, and he does have right to it, and at the budget meeting, which we try and have for everybody, you should be getting a copy of that sent over to you for it. And I'll have that, I could go grab it, or I can have it sent to you.
Did
But
we
no,
not
you're right.
get a
You
budget, a binder this year?
Yeah.
Information from the Hartwell, was it in, was distributed?
No, we stopped getting information when Johanna retired as secretary.
It was only 2
Well,
weeks.
so because of,
Complete books before that.
She,
Does anybody have their budget binder with them?
mine's in my car.
mine's in the file cabinet up there.
I have one downstairs, I can.
So, if that's where we're at,
Budget
do we want to table it, or do you want to,
I would say their meetings.
you want to go ahead with the vote? I forget who put the motion in.
Catherine and
Catherine.
Peter, Catherine and Pat.
Call question.
All those in favor of funding the summer concert series for $2,000, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm not voting.
I declined to vote.
So, one question, does the board want to remove the alternate recreation line? That was originally added because of the thoughts of maybe either the funding the Pemmy Youth or the Tilton Sports Center.
I would take it out.
Is that a consensus? Remove that line?
So what's up with Pemmy Youth?
They're being replaced.
They,
Well, I heard they closed down, but when I was watching the Christmas thing there at Patrick's, they did receive $5,000 out of that fundraising, reading the Daily Sun.
they're over at middle school.
You remember, they're up in Plymouth.
Huh?
They also have an agency up in Plymouth.
Boys and Girls Club are taking them out, and they're gonna be at the middle school.
I did
Boys
hear,
and Girls of Franklin?
They're going-
Okay.
I did hear that they may be moving into a room in the school.
Two
So-
rooms at the middle school.
Under the alternate recreation fund, if something came up for recreation or one of these other organizations, could we still fund it? Or, I mean, does it hurt to have the dollar in there that we could?
It doesn't hurt. It's just originally those two things were discussed, and since they didn't seem to be relevant anymore,
Well, I think
I just wanted to bring the question to your
under the
attention.
failure of the Pines to exist, with the things that were going on was,
we needed
Right.
alternatives.
Okay, so we'll leave that?
I think so.
Okay,
I
so
would.
I don't,
You
I'll
know,
pay for it.
I don't know.
The,
We're paying fines.
all right, are we gonna go into non-public the last,
No.
so that we can hear the.
If you like, yep, I can describe it to you. I'll just, so we have one item that was left open, and there's a reduction of $4,500 in other lines, and I'll have the updated one for you tomorrow.
We're flying.
So I have a frightening question. Do we still have a list of warrant articles? You know, how through the year we go, oh, we need to make that a warrant article?
We do. Yeah, we have we're working on, we've got a draft list.
Nice.
So, are you gonna make a motion?
Do we need to go into non-public, or is Jeannie part of the information that we need?
What was non-public for?
It has,
Police
it
department.
has to do with the police department.
Tim's got the information, I think.
I do, I know that Jeannie would prefer to be present for it, but there's nothing really,
Why don't we take a look at it and discuss it, and then, spend no more than 10 minutes in it?
Can we do it tomorrow night? Since the budget is coming up?
Can we at least hear it or no? And not
Isn't
make a
that something
decision?
that you get printed out?
I can describe for it very easily, it's very simple.
Motion on non-public for
Personnel.
acquisition
Yeah.
of land?
For RSA 91A:3, paragraph 2, consideration and acquisition of sale of real estate?
No,
No.
No, personnel.
Now,
it's personnel.
Personnel.
Oh, the other one, okay.
authorization.
That's not quick.
Police
That's
department.
not gonna be quick. We're gonna make it quick, we're gonna be no longer than 10 minutes.
He's just giving a brief overview, and then we'll pick it up.
Okay, so that would be C. A. 91A:3, paragraph 2A.
Second.
Is there someone up here?
Jessamine,
You know,
yes?
Clark,
Yes.
Dawson, yes. I never know if
Did
you're
you
gonna do
skip
this
the alphabet?
alphabetically or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're starting in the, we're gonna start in the middle, work outward.
The
Is
budget.
that your buyers?
We got it. Oh.
We are ready is on, I make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session as they pertain to personnel matters permanently.
Is that your biased opinion?
As far as you know. We get your opinion.
A motion and a second, seal the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Wait a minute, I can't second my own motion.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Well, you could.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
For tomorrow night.